Staff Sergeant Maria Santos wiped down the scope of another returned rifle, her movements precise and methodical in the armory of Forward Operating Base Talon. The morning sun filtered through the reinforced windows as she catalogued equipment with the same attention to detail that had earned her commendations in roles nobody here knew about. Outside, she could hear the distinctive sound of helicopters warming up for another mission. The armory door swung open with its familiar metallic groan. Team leader Johnson strode in with 3 other SEALs, their gear heavy with the weight of an upcoming operation. They barely acknowledged her presence as they moved toward their designated weapon lockers. Johnson grabbed his customized M4 and glanced at Maria. "Santos, right? Make sure these are cleaned properly when we get back. We can't afford any malfunctions out there," he said, his tone carrying the casual authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Maria nodded quietly, continuing her work. "Of course, Sergeant. They'll be ready," she replied, her voice steady and professional. She watched as the team checked their gear with practiced efficiency, noting their tactical setup and mission loadout with an eye that caught details others might miss. "Where in the world are you watching from and what time is it there?" This story connects military families and supporters across every time zone. The SEAL team finished their gear check and headed toward the exit. Maria continued her methodical work, but her attention shifted to their conversation about the mission parameters. She caught fragments about grid coordinates and elevated positions that made her pause momentarily in her cleaning routine. Rookie Thompson adjusted his pack straps and looked back at Maria. "Hey Santos, you ever been outside the wire?" he asked with genuine curiosity rather than condescension. Maria's hands never stopped moving across the rifle components. "A few times," she answered simply, not elaborating on the classified operations that had taken her into some of the most dangerous territories in 3 different countries. Johnson checked his watch and motioned to his team. "Time to move. The birds are spooling up and command wants us in position before the sun gets too high." He turned toward Maria with a slight nod. "Keep our gear squared away, Santos. We'll need everything functioning perfectly when we return." As the team filed out, Maria caught Johnson's final words to his men about the ridge line they'd be operating near. Her eyes narrowed slightly, recognizing the terrain from intelligence briefings she technically shouldn't have seen. The area was known for complex sight lines and multiple overwatch positions. The armory fell silent except for the distant rotor wash as the helicopters lifted off. Maria set down her cleaning cloth and moved to the communications console in the corner. "Have you ever noticed how the most important conversations happen when people think nobody's listening?" Maria adjusted the frequency on the communications console, her fingers moving with practiced precision across controls most support staff barely understood. The encrypted channels crackled to life, filling the armory with the steady chatter of operational communications from multiple units across the region. "Falcon 6 to base, we're approaching the primary objective." Visual on the target compound, Johnson's voice came through clearly, professional and focused. Maria pulled up the tactical display on her secondary monitor, cross-referencing the team's reported position with the terrain maps she'd studied extensively during her previous deployments. Her brow furrowed as she traced the elevation lines and sight angles surrounding their location. The ridge system in that sector offered numerous concealed positions for hostile forces. She'd learned that during a classified operation 18 months ago when her spotter team had spent 3 days mapping every potential sniper nest in the area. The intelligence reports had been thorough, but field conditions changed rapidly in hostile territory. "Base to Falcon 6, roger your position. Maintain overwatch and report any movement in your sector," came the response from the Tactical Operations Center. Maria's fingers drummed silently against the console as she monitored multiple channels simultaneously. Her training had taught her to listen for what wasn't being said as much as what was. The enemy in this region was known for patience and tactical sophistication, often allowing targets to reach predetermined kill zones before revealing their positions. Something felt wrong about the silence surrounding Johnson's team. 20 minutes passed with routine status reports from Falcon 6. Maria monitored the frequencies while organizing returned equipment, but her attention remained fixed on the tactical situation developing in the field. She pulled up classified intelligence files on her secure terminal, cross-referencing recent enemy activity patterns in Johnson's operational area. The data painted a concerning picture. 3 separate reconnaissance reports over the past week had noted unusual movement in the ridge system surrounding the target zone. Local informants had gone silent, and drone surveillance had detected what appeared to be deliberate attempts to avoid detection. Falcon 6 to base, we have eyes on multiple heat signatures in the compound. Looks like our intel was accurate, Johnson reported, his voice maintaining professional calm despite the tactical complexity of their situation. Maria's fingers froze over her keyboard as she studied the terrain elevation maps. The compound sat in a natural bowl surrounded by elevated positions on 3 sides. It was tactically disadvantageous for the attacking force, offering numerous concealed firing positions for defenders who knew the area. Her training kicked in as she analyzed the situation with the methodical approach that had kept her alive through dozens of high-risk operations. The enemy wouldn't reveal their positions until Johnson's team was fully committed to the engagement. They were walking into a carefully prepared trap. Maria reached for her secure communication headset, then hesitated. Protocol demanded she route concerns through proper channels, but time was running short. The radio crackled with sudden urgency. Contact left. Contact left. We've got multiple shooters in the rocks. Johnson's voice cut through the static, the professional calm replaced by the sharp intensity of combat. Maria's blood ran cold as the tactical situation she'd feared began unfolding in real time. Automatic weapons fire echoed through the communication system, punctuated by shouted commands and position reports from the embattled SEAL team. Falcon 6 to base, we are taking heavy fire from elevated positions. Request immediate air support. The desperation in Johnson's voice was barely controlled as his team fought for their lives against a well-coordinated ambush. Maria pulled up the live drone feed on her monitor, watching thermal signatures move with deadly precision around the surrounded Americans. The enemy had waited until the SEALs were fully committed to the compound assault before revealing their carefully prepared positions. Base to Falcon 6, air support is 15 minutes out. Can you hold your position? Negative. We're pinned down and taking casualties. They've got us bracketed from 3 directions. Maria's hands moved across her keyboard with lightning speed, calculating distances and sight lines with the expertise of someone who had made impossible shots under similar conditions. The ridge system offered one potential firing position that could break the ambush, but it was over 800 meters from the base. What would you do if you heard teammates in mortal danger but weren't supposed to act? Sometimes the right choice means breaking every rule. Maria stood abruptly, her chair rolling backward as she moved with sudden purpose toward the weapons locker. Her hands found the Barrett M82 sniper rifle she'd been maintaining, its familiar weight settling into her grip like an extension of her own body. Thompson's panicked voice cut through the radio static. Johnson's hit. Johnson's down. We need immediate extraction. The Tactical Operations Center erupted in controlled chaos as officers coordinated rescue efforts, but Maria knew the mathematics of the situation. Air support was still 12 minutes away, and the SEAL team wouldn't survive that long under concentrated fire from multiple elevated positions. She grabbed her field gear from her personal locker, muscle memory guiding her hands as she assembled the equipment she'd hoped never to use again. The Barrett scope, range cards, windage calculations, and the specialized ammunition that could punch through body armor at extreme distances. Base to all units, we have a team in contact requiring immediate assistance. Any available assets respond immediately. Maria paused at the armory door, knowing that stepping outside meant revealing capabilities she'd worked hard to keep hidden. Her discharge papers listed her as logistic support, but her classified service record told a different story about precision shots that had saved American lives in places that didn't officially exist. The radio crackled again with desperate position reports. Her teammates were dying while she stood frozen by protocol and the fear of exposure. Have you ever had to choose between staying safe and doing what's right? Maria burst through the armory door into the blazing Afghan sun, the Barrett rifle slung across her back as she sprinted toward the motor pool. Her boots pounded against the gravel as panicked radio chatter filled her earpiece with the sounds of her teammates fighting for their lives. "We're down to half strength. Enemy snipers have us pinned from the North Ridge." Thompson's voice cracked with stress as automatic weapons fire provided a deadly soundtrack to his desperate report. She commandeered an ATV without authorization, her hands steady on the controls despite the adrenaline flooding her system. The ridge position she'd identified was accessible by a maintenance trail that wound up the backside of the mountain, hidden from enemy observation. The engine roared as she navigated the narrow path with reckless precision, years of tactical driving experience guiding her through terrain that would challenge most soldiers. Every second counted as the radio continued broadcasting the deteriorating situation below. "Falcon 6 to base, we have multiple wounded and are running low on ammunition. Where is that air support?" "Still 8 minutes out," came the grim response from tactical operations. Maria reached the crest of the ridge and abandoned the ATV, moving with practiced stealth toward the edge of the precipice. Below her, the valley spread out like a tactical map, revealing the deadly geometry of the ambush that had trapped Johnson's team. She could see muzzle flashes from 6 different enemy positions, each one carefully chosen to create overlapping fields of fire. This moment reminds us that sometimes one person with the right skills can change everything. Maria dropped to her stomach at the ridge's edge, the Barrett rifle sliding smoothly into position as she chambered a round with practiced silence. Her breathing slowed automatically, years of training taking control as she peered through the high-powered scope at the battlefield below. The tactical picture became crystal clear through her magnified view. 6 enemy shooters occupied reinforced positions among the rocks, their weapons trained on the small depression where Johnson's team had taken desperate cover behind inadequate protection. She calculated distance, wind speed, and elevation with the methodical precision that had made her one of the most effective snipers in classified operations. 840 meters to the primary target, crosswind at 6 knots from the southwest, temperature differential requiring minor scope adjustment. "Falcon 6 to base, we've got wounded who need immediate medical attention. How long on that air support?" Thompson's voice carried the edge of desperation as his team's situation deteriorated by the minute. Maria centered her crosshairs on the enemy sniper who had the best angle on Johnson's position. Her finger found the trigger with familiar comfort, muscle memory guiding her into the zone where heartbeat and breathing synchronized with deadly purpose. The enemy fighters below had no idea death was watching them from the ridge they dismissed as empty terrain. They'd chosen their ambush positions well, but they'd made one critical mistake in their tactical planning. They hadn't considered that someone might be watching from above with the skills to reach out and touch them from impossible distances. Maria's world contracted to the perfect circle of her rifle scope as she tracked the enemy sniper's movement. Her heartbeat slowed to match her breathing rhythm, each exhale bringing her deeper into the focused state that separated expert marksmen from ordinary shooters. The radio crackled with increasing desperation. "We're taking fire from multiple directions. Johnson's not responding and Martinez is bleeding out." Thompson's voice broke with the strain of command responsibility he'd never trained for. Through her scope, Maria watched the enemy sniper shift position to get a better angle on the trapped Americans. He moved with confidence, believing his elevated position made him untouchable from the valley floor below. His tactical vest was clearly visible as he leaned forward to acquire his next target. "Base to Falcon 6, air support is 5 minutes out. Hold your position and mark your location with smoke. We can't hold for 5 more minutes. We need help now." Maria's finger tightened on the trigger as her crosshairs settled on center mass. The enemy sniper was lining up what would likely be a fatal shot on one of her teammates. Time slowed as years of training compressed into this single moment. The Barrett's trigger broke cleanly under her finger, the rifle bucking against her shoulder as the massive round began its journey across the valley. Through her scope, she watched the bullet's trajectory with professional detachment, already shifting to acquire her second target before the first shot found its mark. The first enemy sniper dropped like a stone, his rifle clattering down the rocky slope as Maria's bullet found its mark with devastating precision. The sudden silence from his position created a momentary confusion among the remaining fighters who couldn't identify the source of the shot. Maria was already tracking her second target, a machine gunner who had Johnson's team pinned behind inadequate cover. Her scope settled on him as he swiveled his weapon toward the SEAL position, unaware that death was reaching out from the ridge above. The Barrett spoke again, its thunderous report echoing across the valley as another enemy fighter crumpled. Maria's years of classified operations had taught her to work quickly once her position was revealed, and she moved with mechanical efficiency from target to target. What the hell was that? Thompson's voice carried a mixture of confusion and hope as enemy fire suddenly diminished from two critical positions. Through her scope, Maria watched the remaining fighters begin to panic as they realized they were being systematically eliminated by an unseen marksman. They started abandoning their prepared positions, making themselves vulnerable as they sought cover from an enemy they couldn't locate. The third shot dropped a fighter attempting to flank Johnson's position. The fourth eliminated the squad leader who was trying to coordinate a response to the mysterious sniper fire. Each bullet flew with the precision that had made Maria legendary in circles that didn't officially exist. Have you ever witnessed someone turn the tide of an impossible situation? Sometimes heroes emerge from the most unexpected places. The remaining two enemy fighters broke from their positions in full retreat, abandoning their weapons as they fled up the opposite ridge. Maria tracked them through her scope but held her fire, knowing the immediate threat to Johnson's team had been neutralized. Falcon 6 to base, enemy contact has ceased. Repeat, we are no longer taking fire. Thompson's voice carried disbelief and overwhelming relief as the deadly ambush suddenly collapsed around them. Unknown sniper, this is Falcon 6. Identify yourself immediately. Johnson's voice came through the radio, stronger now as he regained consciousness and command of his team. Maria keyed her radio with steady hands. Falcon 6, this is Overwatch. You're clear to move to Extraction Point Alpha. Air support is 2 minutes out. Overwatch, what is your position and unit designation? We need to coordinate medical evacuation for our wounded. Maria began breaking down her rifle with practiced efficiency, already planning her withdrawal from the ridge position. Falcon 6, medical is priority. Focus on your wounded and get them ready for extraction. Overwatch is mobile and will return to base independently. Through her scope's final sweep of the valley, she watched Johnson's team begin moving their casualties toward the landing zone. The helicopter rotors were already audible in the distance, bringing salvation that had seemed impossible just minutes before. Who was that sniper? Thompson's voice carried a mixture of gratitude and bewilderment that would define the questions to follow. Celebrating the heroes who watch over us from places we never expect. Maria reached the base motor pool as the medical helicopters touched down with Johnson's team aboard. She quickly stowed her gear and returned the ATV to its designated position, moving with the same methodical precision that had characterized her entire operation. The armory door closed behind her with its familiar metallic sound as she began the process of cleaning and securing the Barrett rifle. Her hands moved automatically through the maintenance routine while her mind processed the tactical engagement she'd just concluded. 20 minutes later, Johnson appeared in the armory doorway, his left arm in a sling and his face bearing the unmistakable expression of someone trying to solve an impossible puzzle. His eyes swept the room before settling on Maria, who continued her equipment maintenance without acknowledging his presence. Santos, he said finally, his voice carrying a weight of suspicion and growing realization. Johnson walked slowly toward her workstation, studying her movements with new understanding. Maria looked up from her cleaning cloth with the same professional demeanor she'd maintained for months. Yes, Sergeant Johnson. She replied calmly. Johnson's eyes moved from her face to the Barrett rifle she was methodically cleaning, then back to her steady gaze. That was some impressive shooting from the ridge today, Santos. 800-meter shots in combat conditions. Maria set down her cleaning supplies and met his stare directly. I wouldn't know anything about that, Sergeant. I've been here maintaining equipment all day, she said with a slight smile that told him everything he needed to know. This reminds us that extraordinary people walk among us every day. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that heroes come in all forms.